So good to finally catch up or organise a time to be able to sit down and do this podcast with you. I was just apologising because I feel like kid life on my side of the equator has made it very difficult. It's currently 6:30 a.m. where you are, which makes me feel incredibly excited that you would consider it worth your time to get up for such an early podcast. But you said you had no trouble getting some sleep last night, despite the fact there was a little bit of pressure to be up on time.
Yeah, Tyson, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, exactly. Usually if you're going to like the airport or something, you can really struggle to sleep, but I slept fine. I usually get up around like 6:37 anyway, so there wasn't that big a stretch. You graciously moved it from 5:30 my time to 6:30, and that made a big difference. Going to bed last night, I wasn't dreading it.
Oh man, I was dreading it for you. I kept doing the conversions, and I was like, oh no, how am I going to justify? I've got to try and figure out how to make you happy and find a time that you're happy to record, and also stay married. So it was a very, it was a very delicate procedure, but no, we managed to figure it out. Are you a coffee drinker? Do you kick off the day with a strong coffee of any sort?
No, I don't drink any coffee. The only time I'd have caffeine is before a race. Um, yeah, I like so many people are into coffee, so and it's getting big here. But I always is like, if you can do without it, I was like, I don't want to start. I have good energy anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense from a competitive perspective, I reckon. I had a friend, I don't know if you know Craig Huffer. He'd be 33. I think he ran 330. I know he ran 336 when he
Jesus,
was
that's very
like
good.
20. This is back in about 2010. And I went out to get a coffee with him because we hadn't caught up for quite a while. And he ordered a watermelon juice. I said, mate, what are you doing? And he said the exact same thing that you just mentioned, is that he tries to save it for special occasions. So what is that, a pre-race go-to for you? Will you always have a coffee before you get out there and race, or is that just a sometimes
Yeah,
treat?
that's literally every elite runner. Like
Yeah.
so, key like supplements that every runner. The only key supplement that every runner takes is caffeine, and then like a protein shake afterwards for recovery. They're the only two that everybody takes. Um, like either in form of a tablet, in like maybe a coffee, like say 2.5 hours before a race. The caffeine tablets or caffeine powders people take like an hour beforehand. Um, the half life of coffee, if people are going to do it, is 6 hours. So you're better off being like, do it more conservative, unless it's a very long race. Then you can, say I used to do like 1500s or 5Ks. Like, if you miss that by 15 minutes, you've missed a race. Where if you're doing a marathon, if it kicks in after 15 minutes, it's not the end of the world. So, and then, yeah, like a protein shake afterwards, everybody would have one of those. And then other ones that people try now would be for sub-elite runners. Beetroot shots are quite popular. They're meant to have like, there's nitrates in them, which are meant to like open the blood vessels and allow blood to move freer. There's debate about whether they work for elite runners because their ability to open the blood vessels is quite good anyway. And then there's a new one, Mertain has just come out with it for 1500-meter runners, sodium bicarbonate. It was around when I was there, but it used to it used to be terrible on your stomach, and it make you feel like you had like ants running around your body. So I never took it, but I think they've perfected that formula, and like a load of runners are taking that now pre-competition, like 1500-meter runners.
That's interesting, man. I remember back in about 2008, I had just moved out of home, and I don't know how I had it. I think my mum had just packed it in a box for me. There was some bicarb soda in a box, and I think it
Yeah,
was supposed to be there as like a cleaning product. And I remember I stumbled across some Let's Run article talking about bicarb soda being in some way beneficial to runners, and I had no idea. I didn't know the science behind it. I didn't know the measurements behind it. But I remember taking a tablespoon and pouring it in a glass of water and just completely regretting the decision as I tried to get through a cup of
yeah.
water, because it might have been beneficial to my performance, but I'm not convinced that I had the ability to get it down. But I can imagine Morton's, they'd be mixing that with some kind of flavor to make it more palatable.
Yeah, because as well about your stomach, people used to be, there's no point. It's a better performance, but you're not able to get onto the start line because you're in the toilet. So
It's a
they
good
had to get that right.
That's a good point, man. So where are you at in terms of your running at the moment? Because I was so interested reading through your biography. What you've achieved in the world of middle distance running is pretty remarkable. I mean, I don't know how young you look. You've got a young looking face, but it
Yeah,
looks like
thanks.
you've
37.
a 37. Okay, it's a compliment. So I'm 36, a year behind you. I'd like to assume I've got a young looking face as well, but
I think if
my
you run,
running.
you look younger.
Well, yeah, I feel like that's true unless you're a marathon runner. No offense to marathon runners out there, but they have the opposite effect. I've seen some of my mates.
Yeah,
I
with
look
the
at now and
wrinkles.
I
Yeah.
go, and I can't talk. I mean, I've got wrinkles that need to be treated quite seriously at this point in time. But
Yeah, I'm
I've got a
saying.
couple of mates who have been marathon running for a long time now, and I go, okay, you've been hit by the weather stick, but I reckon you're right. Middle distance, you've been I don't know. You just haven't been out exposed to that wind and sun as severely as the marathon runners. But I say all that
Taking
to
it too
say,
easy on yourself, I'd say.
I say all that to say that it seems as though you've achieved a lot in I was going to say relatively short career, but 17 years, I could imagine, starting at
Yeah.
like an age of 20. Where are you at in terms of your training performance? What's on the schedule at the moment?
Do you know what's so strange, Tyson, is that I've kind of achieved everything I want to achieve. So it's a kind of weird, it's a weird flux in terms of. Now, the only thing is, I do love running just for running as well. So it's not like I'm going to, drop that off. But it is a thing that, like, so I would have, say for the listeners, just very quickly, would have been a 1,500 meter runner in my prime, say, broke the 4 minute mile, won like 5 national championships over 15 and 3K, ran for Ireland at European level. And then, as you said, in your like kind of early 30s, like 32, 33, I was like, you know what, I can feel like I've kind of done what I'm going to do here. I can maintain it, but I'm not going to get that much faster. And then, so then I was like, you know what, it'd be great to break like 8 minutes for 3K, 14 minutes for 5K, and then 30 minutes for 10K. I've ran, say, 49 minutes for 10 miles or close to it, like 50, 49. And then I don't have much of a desire to do the half marathon or marathon. Just doesn't really suit my body. But yeah, so I hit all those. I hit the sub 8, the sub 14, and the sub 30. So I don't know, like, I don't know what I'll do now. Like, my coach wants to try this new way of training, and he is a lot of really elite runners. So he was like, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, so I might do that. It's going to be for the same performance, like for same races, like local road races and national road races. So I'll still be running at a high level. But yeah, just more enjoying it.
So what's the difference in training?
The one he wants to try is, the theory behind it is there's only like 2 elements of training that are important. I don't know if this will work. I said I'd try it though. So what he wants to do is he's listened to this like Belgian coach, and yeah, he's saying that based off the kind of Inga Britsons and stuff like that, there's only 2 elements of training. There is power and there is aerobic capacity, building aerobic capacity. And the idea is that then you should just optimize for those 2 things, like 100% optimize for those 2 things. And anything in between that, or anything that kind of varies that, isn't really hitting what it should. So the training sessions are a lot then of like 6 sets of like a 200 meters in, for me, like 28 seconds. So very fast. And then followed by 1K in 3:45, which for me, for 6 minute pace, is slow for a workout. If you think my threshold pace would probably, be about like 3:10 per K, like kind of, 5:05, 5:10. So they do lactics at like 1.5. And that idea, that being like, that's purely aerobic, but enough to like, there's basically 2 turn points when you do aerobic. You're just easy run. There's the first time it spikes a little bit, and that's like your first aerobic bit. It's even before marathon pace, but you're working more than an easy run. And then it goes, and then there's another spike, generally around 3 or 4 of a lactic. And then after that, it's all aerobic. So this would be like really focus on that first turn point, the first time you go into aerobic, stay there, really build that base, that like base of the triangle, and then also hit the power so you don't lose that ability to generate the lactic at the top. So yeah, I said I like that. I wouldn't mind. I suppose because I've been a decent runner, he is guys who would be trying to go into world championships and stuff like that. So he just asked me, would we try it? So I'm going to try that for a while and see. Just I don't mind experimenting now, which is a nice place to be.
That's a really cool way to be. So, in terms of how that varies to your usual training, all these years, had you had a pretty consistent routine on a weekly basis that you were using?
Yeah, it'd be split into two. So obviously, I've had a lot of different coaches, but I had two main coaches. So Emmett Dunleavy is my current coach, who I went to when I was going up the distances, and then when I was working more. And then I had coach Thomas Chamney, who was my coach when I was doing like 800s and 1500s. So two things I think are there. One, it was like 8:15. Two, you're like in your 20s. You're really trying to be an elite athlete. You're running, and then you're only working to support that running. Now it's like I'm working and like I like to run, you know. So I think the things that would probably help your listeners more would be how it changed. I would have went from like doing 3 sessions per week to 2 sessions per week. I would have went from doing time and distance based training. Which I mean by that is like pace and distance based. So hit this distance in a certain time or run this pace, to all like time and effort, like heart rate based training. And why that was great is that, you know, why that was great was when you're working, like you have other stresses in your life. Like you don't want constantly to be having a tension of you have to hit a certain time. Where if it's off a heart rate, even if I'm like I don't know if it's got up or, you know, I hang around with my nephew a lot, so, and he was sick, so like I feel a little bit scratchy in my throat. So he like I'll just go out because it's on heart rate. If I am a little bit run down, the heart rates will be up, the pace will be lower, but I'll still be working in my appropriate zone. So the type of sessions I would do then, and the sessions were less intense, and maybe when you're coming into like a racing period, if you need to be good for the very first race, you would dial it in for the last 6 to 3 weeks beforehand. So typical week would be like maybe, like I still run quite a lot, so it'll be one run of like maybe 10 miles, like 70 minutes. Then the second run on Tuesday might be 70 minutes again, but we might do I would do like strides at the end of that. So you might do 65 minutes and then 5 minutes of like strides. Again, not going crazy, but just keeping a little bit turnover in the legs. Then Wednesday would either be like that first turning point, which we call it nearly like marathon pace or marathon heart rate, or the second turning point, which would be lactic threshold. So those sessions, like simple ones you could do, would be like 5 by 7 minutes. I would build up to that, by the way, if you weren't used to that, like 3 by 7 minutes at marathon pace, essentially. Marathon heart rate, I would recommend everybody just get a lactic threshold test. You just need to get one ever in your life. They're about €100. Australia is more expensive, could be like $200. But like one time, doesn't matter your level of fitness, because they're all internal measures. So like I had my first test when I was like 18. As I said, it's nearly 20 years. My heart rates have gone down about 3 beats. So if I just got that test at 18, like my heart rate is basically my heart rate. If you have a high heart rate, it's not like when you hit a certain age or a certain fitness level, you stop having a high heart rate. That doesn't happen. The amount you generate lactic is always going to be roughly the same. What happens is how fit you are, like how fast I can run at those intensities. Like if you think about it, like when you started running, it wasn't like you were like, because people are sometimes, oh, I'll wait till I'm fit. It doesn't work like that. It's like when you started running and you might have been half an hour slower over a marathon or, 10, 15 minutes slower over 10K, you weren't like thinking, well, I'm only running 4 out of 10 because I'm not fit. You, at that time, that felt 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 never changes. What changes is how fast you can run at 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So I would always recommend anyone, it's just sometimes to give like the non-elite, the normal runner, if you're out there running 3-4 times a week, get this test done. If you get the test done, you can send me the results at Eoin, EOIN, or this is a better one, Everard, EVERARD, Pilates, PILATES at gmail.com. Like, I'll get nothing from that. I don't mind helping people out to record the data. So sorry, I went into segue there. Just that's important. So that's how I'm judging. Yeah. Do you want to ask any questions on that, or will I keep with the
really
training?
Interesting. So I'm trying to just get my thoughts around, because I'm a little old school in my approach, and I think part of the reason that I'm a little old school with the athletes I coach, and I was explaining this to, I think I said this I recorded a podcast with Ben True this morning, the American distance runner, and one of the things
he's really good.
We were talking about is that my very first coach, or one of my early coaches, was 79 years old when I started training with him. And when I started training with him, this guy, he had a great reputation. He coached a number of Olympians. He had a number of great athletes that he was working with here in Victoria. Excuse me. And he had such a little focus on technology. And the reason I find it so interesting is because I am curious about the heart rate training and about this lactate threshold training. I'm curious to delve into this more with you in just a moment. But one of the things that I often notice in myself is that I'll run a lot by feel. So sometimes I'll leave my Garmin at home. I won't be looking at heart rate. I won't be looking at pace. I'll just be running it at how I feel. And I'm almost certain, I am certain that some of the runs that I do would be a lot faster than some of the others, based on a number of the factors that you mentioned. Sometimes you're tired, sometimes you're getting sick, and the effort level is still about the same. So when an athlete asks you about, the difference between getting a lactate threshold test and figuring out, okay, like, what is the heart rate that I should be operating on versus how should I run according to how I feel? Like, is there a benefit in knowing your actual heart rate based training over just running to how you're feeling on a particular day? Oh, I lost you there, brother. I think you're on mute.
100%. Sorry, I went to get a bit of water. 100%. And like, I don't know the runners you're coaching, but like I listen, like, you're a smart dude. You get that within like one day, and it just adds another tool to your toolbox. That was something that people used to say to me back in the day. Now, I was on this early, like, nearly 20 years ago. It'll give me too much to think about is another thing people say. It's like, I'd rather run by feel. Runners are notoriously bad at that. If you're good at that, that's brilliant. The intent, like you give a runner 6 out of 10, they'll push. And the thing, right, what the heart rate helps is it gives you, like, there are days, like, so like your training, Tyson, would still be the same in terms of what I mean by that is, say if I'm getting coached by you, your athletes then would have their zones, and then you would tell them, though, they're like, oh, I'm a bit tired, or that, because the heart rate won't always work, in terms of it can be a day where I could be fine, but my heart rate just won't increase, or if the reps are below 3 minutes, it's not enough time. So the thing you have to tell people is like, look, this should take time. Like the first rep, if it's not into the right heart rate zone, don't be sprinting to get this heart rate up. I don't wear a heart rate monitor when I'm running easy because I can run easy. But I have a friend then who is a lunatic on easy runs. So he has to wear it. Because I'll know by feel, it's like, yeah, I'm going too fast. I need to be pushed. So sometimes if I'm on like a zone 2 run, which is like just slightly steady, we could still have a chat. I need to be told, like, man, you need to go a bit faster. You're just chilling again.
Yeah.
So it just gives it that most runners are like, oh, like the amount of people who tell me, oh yeah, I did my tempo at, like, I did 5 miles in sub 25 minutes, and it's like they can't run like a 10K at that pace. They can't run probably a 5 mile. Like, they probably ran their PB nearly, and it's like, that's not tempo. Yeah. That's not threshold. That's above 80%. And if you want to improve aerobically, you need to train aerobically. So if you are, like, what the heart rate does is, like, you can't go above that zone, because once you're above that, you're training something different. And I did a podcast myself with this guy, Dave McCarthy, and we're talking about it, where we want to push on, but your threshold pace is too far away from your race pace to make a difference in that system. Do you know, like, so say for me, I work out in miles. I don't know. I know people do Ks, but just for simple measure, right? Say if my 10K pace is 3 minutes per K, but my threshold pace is like 3:20 per K, just for sake of argument. If I push that to like 3:15 per K, so I'm going faster than I should be, I'm still 15 seconds a K off my race pace. That's not close enough to race pace to get me used to that pace. So you'd be better doing 3:25, going a little bit slower, and then actually doing like specific race work afterwards that hits like 2:55 a K. So yeah, a lot of times I think it's the opposite. People would have told me, it gets me think like I'll think about it too much. There's nothing to think about. You have a number on a heart rate on your watch, and you just don't go above that number. Like like sometimes you will make the distinction. You're like, okay, the heart rate's not coming up, and do it easier because it should still feel like 8 out of 10. So I still would give people those intensity efforts, but I see most people can't. They don't have the confidence that you would have then to go, you know what, this is that effort. They naturally go, I could probably push on a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a very good case for it. It's actually a perspective I hadn't really considered before. Is one thing that I would have said to you back in the day, is it something that I don't really want to think about? I'm a pretty good judge of what it is that I'm doing in the easy runs. But you're right, I would have been a culprit for a tempo run, just trying to run with, I used to do a lot of running here with Liam Adams back in the day when I was competing. And dude, Liam Adams, as much as I love the guy, was running times for 10K that I wasn't running. And so me running with him for our tempo runs would have been a joke. So I like the idea that a heart rate monitor
that happens all the time. I was talking about that with Dave. There was 2-minute differentials, but everybody used to think like 5-minute miling was like a gold standard for tempo runs or threshold. So lo and behold, no matter what, you know, if you were sub 32 or you were sub 30, everybody seemed to have a 5-minute threshold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true.
It's like all running together.
I like the idea of it being used as an accountability factor. It actually, when you look at it like that and you can be disciplined like that, it actually should alleviate stress rather than add any more stress. Because if you're focused on heart rate rather than time, of course it's going to take away stress because you don't need to be worrying if you're not hitting a certain mile split in the time you did last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like I'm a kind of over-analyzer anyway. So when people said that, it's like if I was going out and every week had to like judge if this is correct. Now, a lot of people, like my friends, can do it without the heart rate. They just know by feel now, but they have used their heart rates for a long time. So, but I'd be like, oh God, is that too fast? Is that too slow? How was that compared to last week? Where it's like, it's just on the heart rate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point. So are you running just with a Garmin? Are you using a heart strap?
Garmin and then heart rate strap. Do not use the wrist strap. They're terrible.
Yeah, I've heard that. See, even myself, I've never really ventured too far into it, but the distance that I have delved into that, I've heard that the variability or the accuracy of the wrist strap.
Just as if you think about it, it's like so little, and it's fine when you're, you know, like resting heart rate. The kind of pulse is more like predictable and slower, but once you get into a rapid pulse and moving your arm that much, it's not. You need just the chest strap again. $50, €50, maybe $100. I know it sounds like an upfront cost, but like if you have a partner, a husband, a wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, like they are freaking out about what to get you for Christmas. So give them a help. They love this. My wife came down and was like, I want a lactic test and a heart rate monitor. The next 6 months of my life would be just a joy, just waiting for Christmas. I'd be putting out all the tinsel, not like sweating bullets on the 20th of December trying to find out what I'm going to get her.
Man, I wish
waiting for that disappointed look on her face.
I wish my wife was more interested in her heart rate because this would be something I would buy with a smile on my face. But
I know I'm trying to get my wife into lactic threshold. Leave little leaflets around the house.
It's a hard sell. It's a very hard sell.
I think she heard me.
So besides your easy runs, you're wearing your heart rate monitor for every of your sessions?
Yeah, but I only session twice a week.
Okay.
And then once you're doing like those like less than 3-minute reps, like, you know, if you're doing like minute on, minute off, don't worry about your heart rate. Just do it off feel. Do them off feel. Like, does it feel like 10K pace? But again, people go too fast. like, as I said, if you think of aerobic as like max 90%, kind of 85%. So if you do a minute on, minute off, and you say, okay, we're doing minute on, minute off for like 15 minutes, with a minute easy, say, and I wanted that like 10K pace. If at the end of like, say, minute 3, I said to you, okay, I want you to keep that going now for 15 minutes, I would say 90% of people would have a freak out. They're like, there's not a chance I can keep this pace going. But then it's not 5K or 10K pace. So if you're doing those reps, like always, especially at the start, imagine what it's like when you settle into the run. So, okay, you have that big burst at the start, but then you do settle into a pace. And then at the end, you're pushing again. But if you're doing that, it's the feel. So the other sessions then might be, I do a lot more of the aerobic stuff. It's just easier to do now. So it might be like, you might do 6 minutes at, like maybe, what would you do? Like 6 minutes at lactic threshold again. And then you might do like 3 by 30-second hills. So you might go 5 minutes at lactic threshold, 3 by 30-second hills, 5 minutes, then like 2 minutes off, 5 minutes LT, 3 by 30-second hills, 5 minutes LT, 3 by 30-second hills. Or you might do 5 or 10 minutes of like AT or LT. That's your marathon or lactic. Maybe like 10, 30-second hills, it's quite hard, or, some kind of hill session there in the middle. And then just some easy like AT running again. So like a little bit aerobic, hit some of these like minutes or efforts, and then go. And then when I am getting ready for 5K or 10K, I'm a neuromuscular runner. And so I need like specific work. I need to run at the pace. I tell a lie. I do this every 2 weeks now. I'll go to the track, and say if I'm getting ready for 10Ks, I need to hit like, say, 3-minute K pace. It doesn't have to be a hard session. It can be, I actually enjoy longer recoveries. But I need practice at like hitting the pace I'm going to run. Like, so we might go again, do some like, 5 minutes or 10 minutes of AT or LT. And then I might do like 8 by 400 meters at 72 seconds is 3-minute K pace. So 472s off like a minute or off like 45 seconds, and just get usually a minute, because as I've got older, I've tried to give longer recovery. So it's like when we're going faster, it's not like I'm like pushing the whole time, but I'm trying to get very comfortable at that pace. And I need to do that for races. If I just do all the aerobic stuff, it feels like I'm sprinting on the day.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's one story I was shocked at when I had Stewie McSwain on here. He was telling me that...
Oh, Stewie's a legend, yeah.
Dude, you know Stewie?
Yeah, I went to San Diego. I was kind of doing some training and a little bit of physio. So...
man, he's one of the best blokes in the world of distance running. So Stewie and I, when he was about 14, we had the same coach. I'm about 7 years older than Stewie. So I was running around thinking I was just showing him the ropes. I was like, I'll show this young fella how it's done and give him some inspiration. And then about a year and a half later, he came out and just wiped off all my PBs. And I was like, okay, I take back all the arrogance that I ever brought to the table.
Yeah.
Dude, he's in terms of blokes you want to see, well, he's right at the top of the list, because he's a very humble guy. And I know...
Very humble. And his talent is ridiculous. When we were in Mount Laguna in San Diego, and he had an injury, so he was just back. So he's doing some runs, and then he would have done a session with like with Ryan Gregson, and like he was like way ahead of us, and just with Ryan, and he was just back, and he was a young guy. Yep. It was like this. He was just like, it's like, oh my god, he's really good. You're thinking, geez, he's decent. And then that summer he was running like, he took like 40 seconds off his PB, running like 13:20. You're like, oh, and he's just gone on from there.
It's unbelievable. I mean, he's one of those guys as well. I've gone off topic. Just before I tell you the story I was about to tell you, the thing that blew my mind was on the podcast. He mentioned at the time he had just run 3:31 for 1500. And he said that in the lead up to that training, he had done no 400 meter work, sub 60-second pace, which was unbelievable to me. But one thing I love about Stewie, and I think a lot of athletes of all levels can take out of a story like from a bloke like him, is his ability to return to form after a bad race is unbelievable. Like, I often found that if I went out and, say, a good time for me was 3:49, that was my PB for 1500.
Yeah, very good.
I went out and ran 3:54, say, and I'd put my maximal effort, and it was just a bad race. Had an opportunity, I would go, oh, okay, maybe I'm in worse form. Question my training, question things, and I felt
Yeah.
psychologically that would linger with me for a little bit. Stewie has this ability to go out and, for whatever reason, have an average run, which happens very rarely, luckily, and then the next week come out and set a national record. I remember a couple of years ago it was diagnosed with pericarditis after his booster shot, and a lot of people were going, "Oh, what's going on here? Stewie's lost it." He started running a couple of runs he was running like 3:49 in huge runs, and obviously this is a bit of a different example because he actually had something physically
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah.
him at the time. But even to once your pericarditis in his instance had healed and fully recovered, to be able to come out and go, okay, we're back. Dude, I remember being so happy the day that I saw he ran 12:56 because it was after all of this.
So sick.
And dude, I knew nothing about any heart issues. I'd never heard the word pericarditis until some of these conversations around athletes, suffering it after their booster shot or second dose or whatever had come out. And he came out, and I was like, crap, I hope this doesn't mean he's done forever. And I just took so much respect away from that race because I know how difficult it is to navigate your way through a couple of poor performances to put yourself not only back to where you were, but beyond it. So I think that not only the physical talent, but just that mental ability that an athlete like him has is unbelievable.
And that is, because people always say like mental strength in races, which I actually don't really believe in. Like, I feel it's like either physical practice, like you need, like me, I just actually need to physically like practice running the paces. But that's the mental strength where it's like trusting the process that like, I have plenty of bad runs, like loads, but nobody ever asks you about the bad runs. And it's like just knowing that like, okay, you might have been tired there, or that didn't go well. And as you said, but normally there is something. It could have been like the training was a bit hard, or you maybe were carrying some little infection, but don't just keep rolling. And with the training, you will get better, and then at the end of the season, you can reflect and go, okay, maybe say if the whole season went poorly, then reflective, like, okay, what was it that I could have done differently? But yeah, like, I think that's the mental strength that's really needed. It's like staying the course and just putting yourself back on the line each time makes a massive difference.
Yeah, it's really true. Man, one thing I was keen to pick your brain about, because I like the adjustment from 3 sessions a week to 2 sessions a week, especially, as I said, I'm 36.
Yeah.
From a physical perspective, even for an elite level athlete at the peak of their game, like when you're winning national titles, the idea of trying to recover effectively between 3 sessions a week seems like a little bit of a task. So I'm not sure if you want to speak to that, but in terms
but if you think of it like, as you said, if you're doing 3 a week, like even with the Australian guys, they're like, they call them Triple Tuesday. So they go, like workout in the morning, gym in the middle of the day, easy run, so you're doing 3. It was like, this is like a full-time job. But if you think about it, then it's like everything is geared towards recovery. So everybody, you're going for a nap in the middle of the day, you're going to bed early, the minute you come home, it's like your protein shake, you're eating, you're not. So, because I think that can happen some people, Tyson, is that not thinking about like, well, life is different now. As like now it's like if I'm doing a workout, like when I lecture, it's like, okay, I'll do the workout and then I might either have patients or some of the Pilates stuff, or I might have lectures that I have to like run to. I might have to do a session, up at 6 and do the session for 5:30 to be back showered to go to work. So the recovery isn't there. That's like, oh, well, it's not like I do this. And it's like, even emotionally, it's like, we have nothing else to do now. We just have to recover. We just have to relax. And then like, go in 2 days time again. The other thing when you're doing that, you'd have a hard session Tuesday. You do like a thresholdy type run on Thursday, which is only meant to be 80%. So it's not like super hard. It's and then the hard session again on Sunday or Saturday. So it's not like they're doing 3 hard ones back to back. It's generally the way that would work. It's like when I was at that distance, I would do a hard session at the distance pace. So like say if it was a 5K, it would be like a hard 5K session on on Saturday, say. Then Tuesday might be an 7 or 8 out of 10 10K type session, something like above the distance or below the distance if you wanted. It could have been like some threshold and then some like 3K work to get you like kind of sharp. And then on Thursday would be maybe above the distance aerobic work, which would maybe be like a 6-7 out of 10 intensity. And then back to Saturday, which would be a 9-10. So it's not like, okay, we're just hitting it hard the whole week.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You mentioned that you're lecturing. Are you lecturing in because you've got quite a solid background in the world of movement, haven't you? Like I think.
Yeah, biomechanics. That's my main
So
thing.
I was having a read through some of your stuff, and I was so curious to talk to you about this because I've had quite a lot of strength coaches on here, and one of the things that just blows my mind is how strong you can be in one capacity, like in a gym sense, and how weak you can be in another capacity in a Pilates sense. And this is something that exercise physiologist over here, John Quinn, who is an Australian track coach and works with a number of the AFL clubs, which is the top level, our version of Gaelic football. I don't know how well you know the scene.
Aussie rules, big time.
Aussie rules, yeah. So he works with a number of clubs there, and he encouraged me in my sub-elite performance. Now, I'm not trying to qualify for Olympics or run PBs, but just stay healthy and strong and just feel good physically. He encouraged me to substitute one of my strength sessions in the gym with a Pilates style session. And the reason he did that, was because I was explaining to him, I do a lot of sessions online with a pretty Australian chick called Move with Nicole. She's got a really big following. And I think she's got a background in dance and Pilates and in dance and in ballet. And some of the strength exercises that she does so casually absolutely blows my mind. I did a session the other day. I wish I could tell you which one it was so you could see it. But she was walking through an exercise, and usually I pride myself on mental strength and ability to push through discomfort. But physically, it was like a core exercise. And halfway through, I just felt my legs come to the ground because she had me up against the ropes. But you put me in a gym setting, I go relatively well, I think, my body weight. Speak to me a little bit about Pilates and the impact that something like a strength routine, whether it be in the gym and Pilates or some alternative sort of focus that you have in the strength routine can have on running performance. Because when I was running competitively, it seemed to be something that at least I was overlooking, and it seems a lot more valued these days.
I think for elite, I think for running, you get better at running by running. So even though and if anyone wants a free trial, I give myself a cheeky plug. You can get a free trial over Pilates. So it's Everard, EVERARD, Pilates, PILATES.com. In the top right hand corner, you'll see a free trial. So if you want to click that, you can do the Pilates that we're going to talk about. It's like a 45-minute class. But as you get older, as you said, there's two reasons. One, running is very good cardiovascularly. It's very good for burning calories, but it doesn't actually activate the muscles that well. That's why all the injuries for running are like plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, knee pain, because it's the ligaments, it's the tendons and the joints that get overloaded. So what the Pilates is really good for is activating the muscles, like waking the muscles up. So it's like if me and you, we went to a bar. If someone starts a fight on you, I'm there to help. But if I'm asleep, you're on your own. And it's the same with running. It's like if the muscles aren't woken up, the ligaments, the joints, and the tendons are on their own. They have to absorb all the load. If the muscles have been woken up, if the joints are moving smoother, then they're just going to help you naturally when you run, because the body wants to stay healthy. But if they're not activated, they're not going to be there. So doing the gym, doing the Pilates, and we'll talk about the Pilates versus the gym in a little bit, is important. If we think of running performance then, how it helps is there's only 3 things that make you a good runner. There is VO2 max, which is kind of natural, but you can improve it with that high-end running. There's the lactic threshold, which we talked about. And then there is running economy, how smooth you are running. So again, if you're doing something like Pilates, which is really like controlling the movement through different ranges, is really like working on core strength. Well, then if the joints can move smoother, it's like if you have oil on a chain, it's gonna move easier. If when you hit and your core is kind of like subtly moving you like left and right because it's not strong, or you clip the inside of your leg each time, so if you come home and it's been wet and mucky and you have like dirt on the inside of your shin, that means that like the glute medius on the outside is weak and it's like hitting. So it's like things aren't efficient. We're not moving as like smoothly and as efficiently as we can forward. So adding that strength, that's how it would help the running, as opposed to and your power. It's like when you're pushing off, it's not as hard to do that. How it differs then, some people, like the gym is excellent though, if people want to do that and didn't like the Pilates, but it's the control of the movement which is really good. It's like we're making sure, like say in our class, we're really making sure of like we have the neutral spine. We're really dialing in how to do the movements. So if I'm doing a gym, the first element, even for like general fitness, not for running, is good movement. So it's like, and there's 3 things that cause good movement. I told you I'll go on absolute rants, so cut in here if any
This is so
chance.
interesting.
Okay, there's 3 things that cause good movement. Good mobility, good movement, so we can get that through moving through the joint, like our foam rolling, our stretching will help that. Stability, like just being able to actually activate the right muscles, like just being able to physically turn on the core, turn on the glutes. And then lastly is like a body awareness. It's like being aware of our position in space. And that's what Pilates is really helping with there. That's the Sports Pilates I developed, is really working on those for runners. So we're getting on our feet and we're practicing all those moves. And it's like, as you said, it's that control that can make you burn, where when you're just pushing through, it's not as hard, and it's on the actual physical strength. So that movement is quite good. And then the next level up on the pyramid is work capacity. That's the ability to tolerate load. And this isn't just for runners. This is if I was just doing a general gym. So that's where the next people should be doing like 3x10, 3x12 reps, 60, 70% burning. But what you're trying to do is like prepare your body for like more strength activities as you go up. Then you'll be doing like maximum strength. If people were looking for like speed or power, it's important that first they build the engine. Like you could have a 1 liter car, it's never going to do well, even if it's critiqued to the end. It just doesn't have enough horsepower in it. After that, then you're looking at your power, and after that, then you're looking at like plyometrics, and then you're hoping that translates to speed. Now, for runners, as I said, you'll get better at running by running. So I really focus on I think the bottom 2 elements of that pyramid are the most important to kind of wake up the muscles. So you'll do some kind of Pilates or something that makes you work on the technique, work on those ranges. And then if you want, then maybe adding one gym, which focuses a lot on the work capacity elements.
Have you got a graphic for that? I would love to see that in picture form. I feel
yeah. I'll pop that up. Yeah,
I was going to say I might even in the show notes where I'll link everything that
Brilliant.
we've spoken
I'll do
about.
that, yeah.
I might even link that and steal it for my own selfish purposes.
Yeah.
Obviously, man, like we could do a number of podcasts just on what you've spoken about there. But
if you do want to do another one on that pyramid, because if people are interested in the gym side of things, it's really interesting and something that people don't, even how they structure a gym. Like when I say that, generally you want to have, and you want a little bit of that in all your gyms, and then have more of a focus. So yeah, definitely be something we could do.
Man, we'll talk about that because I'm very keen to talk more in detail about that one. One thing that I wanted to ask you about, and you mentioned it there, was I love the analogy of the 2 blokes at the pub about how one thing turns off, the other Irish. One's carrying the way. Yeah, classic. I was going to say you'd never find me at a pub with you because I've learnt from stereotypes that it's a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah.
Mind you, we've got a reputation of our own to uphold. But one of the things that I was curious about was you mentioned that, say, for example, like plantar fasciitis might become a problem because there hadn't been enough activation or enough strength that's been developed through that. Go back to John Quinn again, one thing that he does with his athletes is to get them to do quite a lot of, for this particular issue, get them to do quite a lot of work in sort of soft sand, whether it's the long jump pit, in bare feet, to try and activate that part of the muscle, that part of the foot. Because my question was, as you're explaining that, and I know it's a little bit of a tangent to the main point there, but How do you actually go about activating little problem points like that? Because on my return to marathon preparation, I've both dealt with a little bit of plantar fasciitis and a little bit of calf strain. Knees
Yeah.
have been holding up okay, but in terms of I understand how to load up the calves quite effectively and to take care of that.
Don't load up the calves either.
Okay. Speak to me on that. That's another interesting topic, even in the recovery process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
And
my thing, right, is that, okay, so to answer your first question, doing stuff barefoot, if you are barefoot running, only do like 5-10 minutes max, but do it regularly. Sometimes people go bananas with that and do loads, and then you can get more impact injuries. But a little bit of that, yeah, fires it up. When we're doing our gym or if we're doing our Pilates, if people want to do that free trial, you'll see I do everything barefoot. Then it's just like, I don't want to, because if people do the free trial, you're going to see the type of exercise and the type of intensity you need. You need to get these burning. And after that session, you won't be thinking like, oh, how did this work? Like, you'll see that it's simple exercises like your bridge, some like single leg deadlift, standing on one leg, bringing the leg back. So those type of exercises to activate the muscles will work. Again, if people want to see my class, it's for beginners, so you don't need any experience. Try it for free. I honest to God don't mind if you never do it again, but it gives you a good idea of the type of exercises. Now in our course, there's a lot of things to cover, so we're changing up the type of exercises. Like the weeks are not that similar from 1 week to week 8. On the calves then, the key thing that you want to do, it's like, if you think about it, a lot of running injuries are overload injuries, like plantar fasciitis, calf strains as well, or Achilles pain. It's like those areas are being overloaded. And if you think on a marathon training, it is slower running. So you're not really getting that knee lift that you normally would, say, doing your 10Ks or, you would have been a 1500 meter runner. So what you need to do then is not overwork the calf with heel drops, heel raises, but actually work the rest of the leg. So the one I really like is the single leg deadlift, bringing the leg back. So standing on one leg, bringing the other leg back till it won't lift anymore, and you're in a kind of like tilted position, and then holding that for like, say, 10-second holds. What that's going to do is get the muscles of the foot burning, and then it's going to get like the hamstring and glute working a lot more, which then takes pressure off the calf. What a lot of people do is, my calf is sore, but if that's the overloaded area, it's like if me and you are in work, right? No, let's say we're two rowers, and I'm like really lazy, or I'm weak, and like you work like hard, like hell, and then like, but you're getting tired or you're getting sore, and our thing is like, well, let's just make Tyson stronger so he can handle that load. It's like, no, let's make Owen work more. He's the lazy one, so now Tyson's doing his job. Like, so it's what ways do you fix it? Do you work Tyson harder so he can handle an inappropriate load, or do you get the other parts of the chain working more, so now that part of the chain isn't overloaded? And I like the second bit. I like working other bits. So single leg deadlift is my favorite exercise for people who have any calf or Achilles problems.
Oh, that's so interesting. See, I can feel my Achilles and glutes burning just hearing about that exercise. But
yeah,
I'd been doing the opposite of that, and I'm open.
Loads of people do the opposite.
Yeah, I'd been doing the opposite. I'd been told by a guy that I see as a massage therapist that what you want to do, and the way he explained it to me, he said, okay, there's obviously been some micro tears in your calf. And what's going to happen is, if you go right now and try and run, obviously that's not going to heal. It's just going to be magnified, the pain, the actual damage. He said, but over time, without actually loading it up, was his reasoning, is you're going to leave that like a vulnerable bit. So even when it heals, it's not going to heal effectively. And I'm probably completely, I mean, I hope he's not listening to this, because I'm not going to name him, just because I've probably destroyed what was he was trying to say. But yeah, he was just explaining that essentially without that focused load on the calf, it's never going to heal in the right capacity. Is there anything to that, or is that just a little bit of...
And especially if it was really chronic, if someone came in and it's like they've had chronic Achilles problems where we're stopping running, I'm going to then do heel drops, heel raises with them, because we need to, and like less than 3 out of 10. But running itself is putting that load through it, and it's probably putting a little bit too much load through it. So definitely my first protocol is like when someone has like a calf strain or like that the calves are getting sore, but it's not an injury, they're still running. It's like you're going to get so much better bang for your buck doing like the single leg deadlift, because the thing is with that exercise, the calf is already then stretched isometrically. Like you'll feel it in your calf as well, because standing on it for so long will get it burning. But you're not lengthening it and stretching. You're not really loading it up too much. You're putting it into a position with the rest of the leg, and everything is working appropriately.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So,
but because I've had people who've come to me with like terrible Achilles, and like going for that solution has worked way better.
Yeah, okay. I like that. So it's essentially just not trying to throw out a blanket rule to everyone who comes to see you and saying, okay, like what's the actual problem? Is it chronic? Is it not? How do we alleviate that pain? I think I was probably just putting a blanket over what is very personal advice, which, maybe...
No, but a lot of people do that. I think they go for what they're chronic. Like the heel drops, heel raises is like a study by Aronson. That dude, the reason he wanted to do that was the surgeon was like, your leg is not bad enough for surgery, because his Achilles was that sore. So he was trying to break his tendon. He was trying to snap it for him. And then over time, as he kept loading it to try snap it, the pain went. So there definitely is, like, you can get a micro stretch. It can load a tendon, which is important. Load is important on a tendon. But but we're talking about people who've just calf pain or Achilles pain and they're still running. That bit is like, try get the rest of the leg. You know, as you said, in marathon prep, it's like, if you look at the way you run, you're probably very calf dominant on that. So then if you go and the only exercises you're doing are very calf dominant, it's like the calf is getting loaded like crazy. If it's a case where you're having to rest because of Achilles pain, even then I'd probably do 2 weeks of the kind of Pilates strategy that work the other areas, glute bridge, a lot of balance, like the sole of your foot is burning. Single leg deadlift will work really well. Yeah,
man, I'm so interested to do another round with you at some stage if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely. I love this.
I'm aware of the fact we said we'll do around about an hour, and I know you're just starting your day, and I've got to go pick up kids from daycare, so I won't linger for too much longer. But mate, let's line up another one for everyone interested. I'll make sure that I link the free trial to Eoin's membership, the website, anything else. Hopefully, if you can send me that graph, I'll put that in for any visual
100%
learners out there
right now.
And mate, let's talk, and we'll line up a round 2.
Yeah, and if people have questions, I love that. Like I've done that where any question on running, I'll give a good stab, or I have a couple of different opinions, and I'd love to get Tyson's opinion. So we'll do it on the S&C and like building things on like back pain and stuff like that, and like how to put an overall program there. But if people have like any questions that we have here, or heard me on other things and want to get some question, or what's the best, really specific. I am a 54-year-old runner doing my first half marathon. I train this time as a week. What type of training should I be doing? Or I've had this injury. You'd be surprised what kind of advice we can give, and I love that.
Yeah, no, fantastic, man. All right, let's do that. I'll make sure I link it all in the show notes below. Thanks again for coming on. Round 1, we'll do round 2 again real soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyson. Take care.
Thanks, man. See everybody.